Imagine a world of such blinding purity that the concept of a shadow simply doesn't exist. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're tearing apart a fascinating, ancient theological text to get to the absolute origin story of evil. We're going to map out the story of the morning star. How does the highest, most brilliant celestial being in the universe go from absolute glory to an eternal fall? Let me tell you, the psychology behind this narrative is it's absolutely captivating.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The central mystery we're pulling from our source text today is actually a profound psychological puzzle. Why did the perfect angel choose hell? Think about it. We're talking about a being with the greatest intellect in the universe, a mind without a single flaw, making what seems like a completely illogical choice. How does a creature surrounded by infinite light deliberately choose eternal shadow? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at the structure of the universe before time even began. To really understand this fall, we first have to establish exactly how high up the ladder we're talking about here. According to the three-tiered celestial hierarchy described in the sources, at level 1, you've got the seraphim. These are described as burning flames of love. At level 2, the cherubim, the powerful guardians of wisdom. And at level 3, the archangels and angels, acting as messengers and guardians. But right at the absolute pinnacle, literally sitting above every single one of those tiers, is Lucifer. He wasn't just another angel in the choir. He was designated as the seal of perfection and the morning star. Basically, the Creator's absolute masterpiece. And this perfectly illustrates the tragic irony of his origin story. The text says, "Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor." The sources describe a being so magnetic, so flawless, that his very perfection became the invisible seed of his downfall. It's crazy to think about, but it didn't start with some massive explosion of hatred or violence. It just began as a tiny, quiet thought. Just a fleeting wonder, does his glorious light really need to serve a higher creator, or is his wisdom magnificent enough to earn him his own personal glory? What these ancient texts really emphasize is that this rebellion was definitely not an overnight event. It was a slow, deliberate decay, fueled entirely by free will, happening right alongside the Creator's immense patience. First, you have that invisible spark of ambition. Then, God gives a gentle first warning, noting that Lucifer's thoughts are straying and becoming self-centered. But the seed keeps growing. So a second, more urgent warning comes as his inner light literally begins turning to shadow. Finally, we reach the delayed test. The source material makes it incredibly clear that the Creator repeatedly tried to save his masterpiece, postponing this ultimate test to give Lucifer every possible chance to just find his humility again. Section 1. The Forbidden Vision, the Spark of War. All right, this brings us to the absolute climax of the narrative, the specific, universe-altering revelation that finally broke heaven. In a grand celestial assembly, God makes a totally unprecedented announcement. "I will create a material universe and beings in my image." The texts describe how the heavens were just filled with absolute awe and joy as God unveiled this magnificent plan for a physical universe, spinning galaxies, the whole shebang, and a completely new type of creature, humans. Beings uniquely crafted out of both mortal flesh and eternal spirit. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the concept of the Incarnation. God revealed that he wouldn't just create these human beings, but that he would actually lower himself to take human form in Jesus Christ. And the really critical part? He asked the glorious, immortal angels to worship him in that fragile, mortal flesh. For Lucifer, this exact concept, the creator of the universe becoming fragile humanity, was the absolute trigger that completely shattered his pride. So this twisted internal logic started to form in his mind.
Why should pure light bow to mortal clay? Try to put yourself in Lucifer's perspective for a second here. He was the highest, most brilliant, most intellectually perfect spirit in existence. From his point of view, why on earth should he humble himself to worship an inferior, fragile human form? Especially when the divine vision also revealed that these very same human beings would eventually rebel, fall into corruption, and actually crucify their creator. To Lucifer's brilliant but totally arrogant mind, bowing down to this plan was an unacceptable humiliation. And that intense internal storm leads directly to this. No, just one single universe-shattering word. According to the source texts, while the rest of heaven rejoiced and willingly bowed to the Creator's magnificent plan, Lucifer just stood rigid, looked directly at the throne, and delivered this single word of cold defiance. It was literally the absolute first true break in heaven's perfect harmony. Let's compare this massive division. On one hand, we have Lucifer's arrogant, logic-driven argument, "It is a humiliation to bow to flesh," and he actively began to seduce other angels with this really compelling, rational-sounding rebellion. But on the other hand, look at the response from the Archangel Michael, who simply asked a question, who is like God? Michael, who is actually a being of physically lower rank than Lucifer, provided this simple, devastating, and deeply humble recognition of the Creator's absolute authority. It completely undercut Lucifer's complex intellectual pride. But Lucifer's persuasive power was immense, and the scale of the resulting division was just catastrophic. The heavenly host was totally torn apart. Lucifer didn't use brute force to build his army. He used his magnetic charisma, his authority, and his seductive logic. Our sources indicate he successfully corrupted a massive portion of God's finest creations, convincing a full 1/3 of the angels to fall with him, while 2/3 remained faithful. This ideological divide inevitably culminated in a literal, explosive final battle, and the eventual expulsion to the abyss. The texts describe a fierce celestial war, where Michael's unwavering faith, rather than sheer strength, actually powered the victory. Armed with that humble cry of "Who is like God?", Michael hurled the newly minted Satan, which means the Adversary, and his massive rebel army out of the eternal light and into the dark void of eternal exile. Section 2. The Eternal Exile, a war on humanity. So, Lucifer's defeat in heaven simply transformed his anger into an active, vengeful mission to corrupt God's new material creation. His strategy, basically his playbook, has remained flawlessly consistent throughout the theological texts. Step 1. Eden. He uses cunning to sow a tiny seed of doubt in Adam and Eve. Step 2. Job. He attempts to test human loyalty and destroy faith through intense, totally inexplicable suffering. And step 3, Jesus in the desert, where he offers vast worldly power but demands the sacrifice of humility. In every single step, he's trying to corrupt humanity's free will using the exact same weapon that caused his own fall: pride. Now, the theological source material we're examining today concludes with a very definitive endpoint: the final defeat in Revelation. According to these ancient prophecies, Satan, described in the end times as the Great Dragon, is ultimately destined for failure. The texts clearly state that he will finally be cast into a lake of burning sulfur by divine justice. So the source imparts a very clear, impartial message here. While evil is depicted as a highly active and organized force in our world, it is a strictly limited one, and its utter defeat has already been written. So, what does this all mean for us? We are left with a really profound question to take away from this epic narrative. If the universe's most perfect intellect could be destroyed by a single spark of pride, how closely are you guarding your own free will? This entire story serves as a fascinating psychological and theological warning about the extreme fragility of choice and the blinding nature of vanity. Well, that wraps up our explanation for today. I hope breaking these concepts down has given you a crystal clear understanding of this ancient text. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.